Wagwan people. Alright, so I just got done watching The Defenders Season 1 on Netflix, Marvel's The Defenders, and decided to do a little bit of a review on it. Now, I'm not going to get into any sort of major plot point spoilers or anything like that, but I'm going to be talking about the whole season, so if you haven't seen it, bear that in mind. Alright, so let me start with, I'm going to start mostly the things that I liked about it. So overall, I think they did a really good job. I think the story was really good, it worked. I will say that in terms of how it connects to the previous ones, they've done really well. In particular, how they connects the stories, I should say, really. They've done that really well. So the individual stories that they had from their previous seasons and how that comes together in this season, I thought it was done really well. If you haven't seen the previous season, so Daredevil season 1 and 2, Jessica Jones season 1, Luke Cage season 1, and Iron Fist season 1. If you haven't seen those, I don't think you'd be too lost with this because it is pretty much its own story. But you may be like, oh, why are they doing that? Or what's that bit about? Or what's that got to do with this? You might be like that a little bit, but I think you'll still get the overall story because it is still pretty much its own thing. I would say though that when I was watching like the first maybe 3, possibly I think 3 or maybe 4 episodes, but I think 3 episodes really actually, but the first 3 episodes, getting to, you know, the Defenders, part of the Defenders, that did feel like it was dragging a little bit in those episodes. It felt like it was dragging just a little bit too much. I think the reason why it felt a bit draggy though, dragging on a little bit, is because, you know, there's only 8 episodes and you're thinking, okay, well, it's going to be a shorter season, they might want to move on a little bit, right? It does kind of feel like that, but I think that even considering that it's only 8 episodes, it does still work quite well. The pacing works fine and it's not a problem at all in the grand scheme of things. But all the actors I felt were done really well. So Daredevil, played by Charlie Cox, it was excellent. I think from Daredevil, the first 2 seasons, that was just brilliant. Especially Daredevil season 2. That's still my personal favorite of the Netflix Marvel series that's happened so far. That's still my personal favorite, especially the whole thing with Punisher. And yeah, Punisher's coming soon. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil, done excellent. Christine Ritter, who plays Jessica Jones, was excellent as well. I think like from Jessica Jones to this, I liked her a bit more in this one. Jessica Jones was okay. The series, I mean, was okay. Well, that was better than okay, to be fair. But my issue with Jessica Jones' series is that her fight scenes came across a bit boring, you know, and there was quite a few fight scenes in there. And I get it, she's not the martial artist, and that's fine. It makes sense to why her fight scenes like that. But I just felt like, you know, they were a bit boring in that. In this, her fight scenes, I personally felt were much better. I mean, she's still not the martial artist, but just the way, I guess maybe the way it's edited or the way they just did it or whatever, it just seems a lot better in this in the Defenders. Same with Iron Fist as well. Like, his fight scenes were terrible. Well, maybe terrible is a bit of a stretch. They weren't terrible. They certainly just weren't as good as they should have been in the Iron Fist series. You can tell, like, he was easily by far the worst martial, at least in my view anyway, he was by far the worst martial artist in that series. In this one, it's a lot better. Now I don't know whether that's because maybe he trained a bit better for the martial arts in this one, or maybe they have a better stunt double, or maybe better editing techniques. I don't know what their reason is, but his martial arts came across a lot better in the Defenders than he did in Iron Fist. Mike Coulter, so he plays Luke Cage, and I thought he'd done really well in the Luke Cage series. That was an awesome series, especially the whole thing with you know, Long Live the Chief, when he was, yeah, I won't get into that now, but yeah, it was a good series. But yeah, he done really well in this, and what I really liked in this one. One of the things I really liked in this one, I should say, really, with his character was that whole thing between him and Iron Fist, Danny Rand, because, you know, he's sort of, Luke Cage is more sort of Harlem-based on street level, you know, trying to help the people in his community. So he sees things from that perspective. But then you've got Danny Rand, who's, you know, he's a billionaire, but, you know, he's Kung Lung and all that stuff. So he sees from that perspective. There was something that I didn't like about it, though, and that's when Luke Cage brings up privilege. And the reason why I didn't like that too much is because I felt like, although what he was saying wasn't necessarily inaccurate, I felt it was inaccurate for this particular circumstance. Because yes, I mean, if you look at the grand scheme of things, yes, there are people in the world who are billionaires and they could, and you know, they have power and influence and various other things, and they can do so much if they chose to do so. So yeah, it's not exactly inaccurate what he was saying in the grand scheme of things, but in terms of saying it to Danny Rand, it just didn't make a whole lot of sense because well, the Danny Rand story and this is maybe a little bit of a spoiler for Iron Fist if you haven't seen that, but yeah, his story is that his parents died when he was really young in the plane crash. You know, that's his whole thing, and he was raised by monks in this mystical place called Kunlun. So in terms of what he could have done, not really a whole lot, right? You know, because he talks about, oh, you had the power to change the world from when you were born. It's like, well, he's a child when he was born, so he's probably not thinking about changing the world back then. Then his parents died, so they didn't raise him, and he's raised in this place where, you know, he didn't even have too easy access to the whole world until much later when he grows up. So yeah, there's not really a whole lot he could have done. I mean, you could argue that there's things he could have done when he got back out and got his company back and da-da-da, but certainly not from when he was born. So I think the way they did it, it didn't fit this particular situation, but in the grand scheme, it's a minor, you know, it's a minor. It's just you know what I mean? It just, because it was such a awesome, at least in my view, it was an awesome way they did it, and the way I just love how they have to do see from different views, because that makes so much sense for everything. And then he had to bring this up and it's like, oh jeez, you know what I mean? But yeah, minor thing, minor thing, yeah, get me, minor thing. Other stuff that I like though was like the just fights in general. I think the fights in general was done really well, and in most cases better than their own sort of seasons, especially with Jessica Jones and Iron Fist, Diane Rand. I thought they were much better. I guess with Luke Cage and Daredevil, they're not necessarily much better, but you know, there was still, I feel it was more exciting to watch the fights in this one, for the most part at least anyway, and just the general action overall was done really well. So yeah, the action was really great. Yeah, really great action series. Now, some of the things I didn't like, well, not even some of the things, I guess it was one thing I didn't like, and I guess a relatively minor thing as well in the grand scheme of things, was Madame Gao's character. And the reason for that is because Madame Gao was awesome in, well, not so much Daredevil, because she has a sort of smaller role in that, but she was pretty cool in Daredevil. But she was definitely awesome in Iron Fist. And as weak as that series was, Madame Gao was awesome in that, and I love what they did with that character. It was just fantastic, right? We get to this one, it turns out that she's got a boss. Okay, cool, not a problem. But in the beginning, in the first sort of few episodes or so, maybe up until about episode maybe 5, I think 5 or 6, she just came across as very, very subservient to her boss. And it just didn't seem to suit the character they spent all that time on Iron Fist, especially building up. It didn't seem to suit. Why would she also be so subservient? I don't mind that she answered to somebody. You know, most of us have to answer to somebody, you know. But it's like how they went about doing it. I felt that was it was a bit of a step back for her character. That being said, that's only for the beginning part. It does change a little bit more towards the end, maybe not quite back up to how she was in Iron Fist, but certainly they do give her character a little bit more in maybe the last 3 or 4 episodes or so. And so yeah, relatively minor in the grand scheme of things, but just like they just didn't need to do it. They just didn't need to do it, you know. But yeah, but I think that's really the only thing, or well, not the only thing, but maybe just a few things I didn't like there. Everything else, you know, Sigourney Weaver was excellent as Alexandria. Elektra as well, really love what they did with her character. And that whole storyline was superb. And if you, I don't want to say too much because yeah, voice spoilers, but there's boy, Elektra, boy, she's something, man. She's something. Let me just leave it at that. But yeah, I like what they did with all the characters, and I think everything. Well, not everything, but certainly most of it overall was done really well. I think if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth seeing. If you're a fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and or the Marvel Netflix series in particular, you've probably watched it already. I think for people who haven't watched it, it's definitely worth watching. If you're on the fence about it, it's definitely worth watching, especially the fact that it is only 8 episodes, so it's not even a massive. Well, none of them are massive investments anyway, because I think mostly about 12 or 13 episodes. But this one's only 8, so it's even less of an investment if you decide to try it out. And I was saying before, I don't think you'd be too lost with the story. It does make a lot of references to previous stuff, but nothing that I think that you'd really be particularly, oh my, I just don't get it, what's going on. I don't think you'd be like that. But yeah, that's what I think of The Defenders Season 1. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. And if you like this video, give it a like and share it amongst your friends. If you did not like it, then give it a dislike and share it amongst your enemies. Either way, let me know your reasons in the comments. Subscribe if you have not already. Thank you for watching, and until whenever, if ever, sweet. What does he say now? It's not Christmas. That's what he says in the first one. What does he say in Luke? Oh damn, sweet sister. There's that. Sweet sister.